Somewhere along the coast of southern Arabia, roughly 3,000 years before the Common Era, a trader loaded a bundle of dried tree resin onto the back of a camel. The resin had come from a tree that grew in only a handful of places on Earth, scraped from cuts made in the bark and left to harden in the sun. He did not know what it would become in the hands of priests, kings, or generals. He only knew that people paid well for it, and that the journey north, across weeks of open desert, was worth the risk. What nobody knew at the time was that this small bundle of hardened tree sap would help build trade empires, fund armies, and shape the politics of the ancient world for the next 2,000 years. It would be burned in temples, rubbed onto the bodies of the dead, and fought over by kings who never once cared what it smelled like to the people carrying it. The earliest fragrances were not liquid at all. They were smoke. Frankincense and myrrh, the two resins most closely tied to the birth of perfume, come from trees in the genus Boswellia and Comifera, which grow almost exclusively in the region now spanning Yemen, Oman, and parts of the Horn of Africa. Harvesters would cut shallow wounds into the bark and let the sap ooze out and harden into small, amber-colored tears. Burned over hot coals, these resins released a thick, fragrant smoke that ancient people believed carried prayers upward to the gods. The word perfume itself is often traced back to this practice, rooted in the idea of scent passing through smoke. Archaeological evidence from Egyptian tombs and Mesopotamian temple sites suggests the burning of aromatic resins was already an established ritual well before written history reliably records it, and by the time hieroglyphic and cuneiform texts begin describing temple offerings, incense is already treated as essential, not exotic. It was in ancient Egypt that scent first became inseparable from status and the afterlife. Egyptian priests burned resin in daily temple rituals, and embalmers used fragrant oils and resins as part of the mummification process, believing they helped preserve the body and please the gods who would judge the deceased. The tomb of Tutankhamun, excavated in the 1920s, contained alabaster jars that once held solid perfume, some of which still carried a faint scent when opened thousands of years later. But it was in Mesopotamia that fragrance first became something closer to a science. Cuneiform tablets from the region describe a woman named Taputi, a perfume maker attached to the royal palace, who is often cited as one of the earliest named chemists in recorded history. She distilled flowers, oil, and calamus, filtered the mixture repeatedly, and recorded her methods in careful detail. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything about what came next. Perfume was never just decoration in these early civilizations. It was ritual, medicine, and record-keeping, all combined into a single substance. Here's the catch. The trees that produced frankincense and myrrh grew almost nowhere else. If Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, or later Greece and Rome wanted access to it, they had no choice but to trade for it, and that single geographic fact turned a religious material into one of the ancient world's most valuable commodities. By around the 7th century before the Common Era, a trade corridor had formed stretching from southern Arabia, up through the deserts of what is now Yemen and Saudi Arabia, into the Levant and Egypt. Historians came to call this the Incense Route, and it functioned less like a single road and more like a chain of caravan stops and desert wells, each one controlled by a local power that taxed everything passing through. In the kingdoms of ancient Yemen, rival states such as Saba and Ma'in fought for dominance over the routes and the harvesting regions themselves, because controlling the trade meant controlling enormous wealth. This is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. Long before oil, one of the first resources nations went to war over wasn't fuel or metal. It was fragrance. By the height of the Roman Empire, frankincense had become so valuable that Roman writers described caravans guarded like shipments of gold, and Rome's demand for Eastern luxury goods, perfume included, pulled the empire directly into the political and military tensions surrounding these trade routes stretching all the way to Arabia and Persia. The fall of Rome did not end the perfume trade, though it changed hands. As Islamic civilization expanded from the 7th century onward, cities like Damascus, Baghdad, and Basra became centers of perfumery, pulling in raw materials from across a much wider trade network than Rome had ever accessed. Sandalwood arrived from India, musk from Central Asia, and camphor from Southeast Asia. Persian and Arab chemists refined the process of distillation, and it was in this period that alcohol-based perfume, closer to what exists today, began to take shape, moving fragrance away from pure oils and resins and toward the lighter liquid forms that could be blended and layered. Islamic courts turned perfume into an art of hospitality and status, with elaborate scent blends used to welcome guests and mark royal occasions. If you're enjoying this deep dive into where your favorite bottle actually comes from, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this every week. By the time European trade expanded into Asia by sea in the 15th and 16th centuries, perfume ingredients were bundled into the same colonial ambitions that drove the hunt for pepper, cloves, and cinnamon. Portuguese, and later Dutch and English trading companies fought for control of ports and supply routes that carried not just spices for food, but the raw materials of scent. France, meanwhile, was quietly building an industry that would come to define modern perfume entirely. In the town of Grasse, a region already known for tanning leather, perfumed gloves became fashionable among European nobility in the 16th century, and the local glove makers began experimenting with floral oils to mask the smell of leather. Grasse climate turned out to be ideal for growing jasmine, rose, and lavender, and by the 17th century the town had shifted almost entirely away from leather and into the business of flowers and fragrance, a transformation that still defines the region today. The 19th century changed perfume as thoroughly as it changed nearly everything else. The rise of organic chemistry allowed perfumers to isolate and eventually synthesize aromatic compounds that once required rare natural ingredients. In 1882, a French perfumer named Aimé Garlin released a fragrance called Jicky, widely regarded as one of the first perfumes to deliberately combine natural extracts with synthetic compounds rather than relying purely on nature. This single shift meant perfume no longer depended entirely on what could be harvested from a handful of remote regions. It could be manufactured, standardized, and scaled. By the early 20th century, fashion houses such as Chanel had entered the perfume business directly, and the 1921 release of Chanel No. 5 marked a turning point where perfume became tied not just to royalty or religious ritual, but to brand identity and modern fashion. Today, the global fragrance industry is valued in the tens of billions of dollars annually, built on an infrastructure of synthetic chemistry that would have been unimaginable to the traders once guarding caravans of tree resin across the Arabian desert. Perfume survives, through every shift in technology and trade, because it was never really about masking odor. It answers something older than that. Scent is one of the most direct paths to memory and emotion that the human brain has, wired into regions of the brain associated with recollection far more directly than sight or sound. Ancient priests understood, without any of the neuroscience, that fragrance could mark a moment as sacred. Roman elites understood that it could signal wealth. French nobility understood that it could signal refinement. None of that instinct has gone anywhere. It has only changed containers, from burning resin in a temple to a glass bottle on a bathroom shelf. That trader on the Arabian coast, loading resin onto a camel 3,000 years before anyone would think to bottle a liquid and call it perfume, had no idea what he was carrying. He knew only that it was valuable, and that people far away wanted it badly enough to pay for the risk of the journey. He could not have imagined temples burning it for gods, empires taxing it, chemists synthesizing it, or fashion houses building entire identities around a single bottle of it. But in a way, nothing about that has changed. Someone, somewhere, is still crossing distance and difficulty to bring a scent to someone who wants it. The desert has just become a supply chain. If you enjoyed this one, hit subscribe and leave a comment telling us which object or invention you want us to cover next.